I had been declared dead for 3 years before I walked back into my own library. The dispatches from the continent had arrived in the wrong order, which is a mundane explanation for a thing that cost a great deal. A courier's error at the relay station in Calais, a name transposed in the casualty record, and the Duke of Hartwell ceased to exist on paper for 36 months, while the actual Duke of Hartwell was recovering from a wound in a Flemish farmhouse and then very slowly making his way home. I did not know during those 36 months that Emmeline had been told I was dead. I did not know that she had been quietly and efficiently removed from Hartwell House by my uncle, Lord Cornelius Ashby. Within the month, she had been my wife for 8 days when I departed. 8 days. Not enough time for the legal transfer of anything to complete, and that Cornelius had persuaded the estate solicitor, who was 72 and owed Cornelius several favors of the kind men of that generation accumulate without discussion, to reframe Emmeline's position at Hartwell as the inconvenient widow of a man whose marriage had not been properly recorded. I did not know that Emmeline had moved to a cottage in the village of Oldham, 2 miles from the house, and that she had been living there on what remained of the pin money I had settled on her before I left. And I did not know, until I opened the library door at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday morning in October, that she had a child. I should tell you about Emmeline before I tell you about the child, because the child is the thing that lands hardest, and she is the one who makes the landing possible to survive. I had chosen her myself, that matters. The fashionable framing of our arrangement was a match of alliance, my title, against her family's resources, a perfectly ordinary transaction of the period. But the fashionable framing was wrong. I had met Emmeline Voss at a dinner at the Fellows' House in April, and I had spent the entire evening finding reasons to stay near her, and the following morning I had gone to her father and made the conversation necessary, and her father, who was a sensible man, had asked Emmeline privately whether she was amenable, and she had said yes with the particular quality of yes that means the speaker has considered the question seriously and arrived at the answer by their own reasoning. She was 22. She had a way of listening to someone that made them feel they had finally been understood correctly after a long period of imprecision. She had dark hair she wore simply, and a laugh that arrived 3 seconds after the moment warranted it, as though it had to travel somewhere to reach her face. 8 days. Then I was gone, and then apparently dead. I had planned the return carefully. I had sent a letter ahead to my solicitor, the younger one in the firm, who had joined after the old man retired, and confirmed the facts of my identity with the documentary evidence I carried. I expected the matter of the estate to be complicated. I expected Cornelius to be enraged. I expected the house to feel different, which it did. I did not expect the door to the library to open from the inside as I reached for the handle. The woman who stepped back from the door was not Emmeline. She was a housekeeper I did not recognize, Mrs. Pell, according to Cornelius's staff records, and she startled considerably at the sight of me. I identified myself. She said nothing coherent for approximately 30 seconds, and then said she would fetch Lord Ashby. I said I would wait in the library. I entered. There was a child in the library. She was sitting on the hearthrug with her back to the door, arranging objects in a pattern I could not immediately parse, small wooden pieces from what appeared to be a disassembled game. She was, I estimated, somewhere between 2 and 3 years of age. Dark hair simply braided, a pinafore gone slightly gray at the cuffs from extensive use. She heard me enter and turned around. I cannot tell you what I thought in that moment because I was not thinking. I was in the state that follows thought when the information delivered is too significant for the normal processing sequence. She looked at me with the expression of a child who has not yet learned to be afraid of strangers. Frank, evaluating, not unkind. Then she said, "You have my papa's eyes." She was mine. I verified this with Emmeline 3 hours later, in the sitting room of the cottage in Oldham, after Cornelius had confirmed the child's existence with the particular expression of a man who has been concealing something and is calculating which version of the truth is least damaging to himself. Emmeline opened the door of the cottage herself. She had been told I was coming, Mrs. Pell, or the solicitor's office. Someone had sent word ahead, and she stood in the doorway with the look of a person who has rehearsed this encounter and found that the rehearsal was entirely insufficient. She said my name. It was the first time I had heard my own name in a register that meant something in 3 years. I said I was not dead, she said very quietly. I know that now. We stood there for a moment. The air between us had the quality of a room that has been closed for a long time and is being opened for the first time. The accumulated weight of everything that had passed in it, undisturbed, waiting. She said, "I have your eyes," I said. Emmeline looked down for a moment. When she looked back up, there was something in her face I did not have the vocabulary for at the time. I have since acquired it. It was the expression of someone who has carried a thing alone for a very long time, and is only now, at the moment of being relieved of it, understanding how heavy it was. "Yes," she said, "she does. Her name is Clara. She was born 9 months after I departed, and she has, as I have had the privilege of learning over the 3 years since my return, an absolute conviction in her own assessments. She determines things by examination rather than assumption. She said I had my papa's eyes because she had been shown a miniature portrait, and when she compared the portrait to the face in the doorway, she reached the correct conclusion. She is 7 now. She corrected my Latin last Thursday. I had not expected, when I walked into the library of Hartwell House on a Tuesday in October, that the most important thing waiting for me there was sitting on the hearthrug arranging game pieces. But she was. She was, and the fact of her made everything that followed. The legal proceedings against Cornelius, the reconstruction of the marriage record, the long conversations with Emmeline in the Aldham cottage and then in the house itself, make sense in the way that things make sense when the central piece has been located. Emmeline and I were married a second time, properly this time, with the full record completed and witnessed and filed. She sat beside me at the ceremony and held my hand, and I thought about 8 days and 3 years and the particular quality of a yes that has arrived at by the speaker's own reasoning. Clara stood at the front in a white dress and watched the proceedings with the evaluating patience of a small person who has decided she is the primary authority on whether things are being done correctly. Halfway through, she said, in a caring whisper to the clergyman, "You may continue now." He did, so did we.